Well, welcome back to East Texas Sunday Sermons. My name is Scott Brown, and today it's really a joy for me. It's a special treat to have a longtime friend, Robert Barden. Robert and I go back 30 years in the Tyler area together, Metroplex, various things. And Robert is an area representative for Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Robert's no stranger to many of you that may be watching us. So, Robert, welcome to East Texas Sunday Sermons. We're glad you're here. And Robert, take just a few minutes if you would and tell the audience what your role is as an area representative in the Northeast Texas area for Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for having me. And Fellowship of Christian Athletes itself as a ministry has been here, been around 72 years now, and started by a basketball coach in Oklahoma. And so for our area here in Northeast Texas, what FCA looks like, we cover 15 counties, have 180 campuses, and those campuses are made up by middle school, high school, and college campuses. And when you look at the junior high, the middle school, high school, what does FCA specifically look like there? You kind of go back to what is the mission of FCA? And our mission is really simple: to lead coaches and athletes into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and His church. So on those campuses, all we do, we have a volunteer coach, or hopefully coaches, who come alongside those students and lead what are called huddles, which can be Bible studies that are open to all athletes, or they can be team specific. And that's really kind of a trend where we're beginning to see things move now because of how busy students are, even on a middle school and high school campus. And so those students gather typically once a week, and we really desire to see it be student-led. So what we want to see are our huddle coaches come alongside, build a leadership team, and then empower those students to be the ones who actually lead the Bible studies and the spiritual development on their campuses.
Good. Robert, what's been your response with our local school districts that you cover? Are they opening to FCA? Are there some that just say, no, we don't want that here? But over your years of experience leading this, have most of our school districts been receptive and want FCA on their campus?
Absolutely. Good. And I think some of that is being in East Texas. Obviously, across our nation, we see school districts that face a little bit tighter and tougher situations just within the society today. But man, here in Northeast Texas, our school districts are not only open and welcoming, but man, want to know what can they do to see it become even stronger on their campuses.
So is it fair to say that FCA is pretty much a nationwide ministry organization?
It's a global ministry, actually.
Right. That's
and
great.
In fact, if you really look and see where is the ministry of FCA growing the most right now, I would have to tell you that's happening internationally. Good. And we still have an incredible presence here in the U.S. and see God doing incredible things on those campuses. But man, as a global ministry, global sports ministry, God's doing amazing work.
Good. Robert, we know that students, and we talked about this last week with CB Sutton, that students have a lot of pressure that they deal with. So how does FCA help? You're not a parachurch organization. You still promote the local church, which is good. How do you walk alongside those students to encourage them to walk with Christ? How do you connect with the local church, if you do, to make sure that those students, when they have some spiritual needs, a little bit of spiritual encouragement, not to take them away from their church, but how does FCA plug in on Monday through Friday, as it basically is, while they're at school, to help strengthen them spiritually?
Man, I think the first thing in what you just asked there is FCA's recognition that that's just it. We're not the church. We're a help to that. And that's what I love about our mission statement, having that at the very end of it, of seeking to see coaches and athletes connected with their local church. And we do that through partnership. And for me, Scott, when I say partnership, man, if you want to see a church fully engaged with FCA and FCA fully engaged in a church, it's just that. Number one, man, how can we be praying for each other? Number two, how can we be assisting each other physically? So volunteers from churches helping coaches on middle school, high school campuses, the special events that FCA has, how can churches come along and be volunteers there? And then financially is another piece. One of the things that we seek to do in helping students and coaches grow in their relationship is, man, we want to put Bibles in their hands, and that takes resources. And so that's been one of the key areas that we've seen churches really step alongside us and go, man, we've got folks who want to see and need a copy of God's Word. We want to help with that. And so it really is looking at just the needs of, man, how can we help each other? And I came from the local church work itself, did that for 24 years, in year 15 with FCA now. And so I feel like I get the opportunity to be on both sides of that table. And so for us to look at our churches and say, hey, man, we're not just coming to you with a handout of what can you do for us, but really as a ministry, what can we do with what you're trying to do within the community? And so if we can come along students who have a desire to hear about Jesus Christ, use the avenue of their sport on their local campus to get that message across, and then once we see them come to Christ, man, how do we see that develop? And the best way we can see that develop is not only through the huddles that meet, like I say, throughout the week on their campus, but then get them connected to a church who's going to take that and help them continue to grow as well.
Good deal. Robert, one more question as it relates to FCA on the high school level, because one of the things that you started here a few years ago in our area is during the summer, you have all-star games. Mm-hmm. That first started with just football. And I say just football, that's a huge undertaking because I've walked alongside you on some of those. Tell the audience what you do in the summer, because you've expanded that all-star game. These are for high school seniors, and it just gives them one more time to play, but to have a Christian environment, and maybe for a local coach or a coach from out of state to come and see their skills one more time. So tell the audience real quick what that looks like now, and where did you start? It started very humbly, I know, and how's that evolved today in the summer camps and Weekend of Champions that you do there?
Started in 2011, and we started with an all-star football game and had cheerleaders. And our director at the time took a page from Abilene FCA, or Big Country FCA, who had actually started these all-star games. And so brought it here to East Texas, and we did the football game by itself, probably for about 3 or 4 years, and then just sat there and said, man, what an incredible tool God has given us to see that expand. And so we had a softball coach that reached out to me and said, man, I've been seeing this, and what would it look like to have softball? And I said, well, first of all, are you putting that on our plate, or do you want to help us with that? And he said, man, you tell me what I need to do, and I guarantee you I'll walk with you. And from that day, we added softball, knew that would open up the floodgates. The very next year, we added baseball. And then we had for a few years boys and girls soccer as well. We tried that for about 5 years. And we saw some success with it, but not what we were hoping. And so we've kind of retooled, set soccer back on the shelf. And we are getting ready now for the 2026 edition, which will be year 16 for the football game, year, I believe, 12 for the softball game, and year 11 for the baseball game.
Robert, I want to now move to the collegiate side of FCA. That's where you really are hands-on. You equip the middle school, high school coaches, those huddle leaders, but you have a great connection with FCA at UT Tyler and have for quite some time. And that's a whole different set of circumstances. You know, those middle school, high school kids still live at home with mom and dad. There's some shelter in place there, as it were, from pressures of the world. But then you engage with these collegiate students who are not only students, but they're athletes. They're student athletes. There's a lot of pressure. You know, the old adage is someone signs a 4-year scholarship. That's myth. It's year-to-year kind of thing, so there's pressure to perform. What has been your encounter? How do you take that FCA model concept, and how do you convert that? And just tell some of your stories on the collegiate level with those college athletes who connect with you, their coach, their huddle leader, because once again, you're talking 18 to 22 and 23-year-olds, and they're out from under that umbrella and shelter of mom and dad, grandparents that they might live with. And now they're on their own, and they're making real-world decisions. And the pressure, how does FCA help them stay grounded in their faith, as well as those who have no faith come to know Christ. How do you work that on the collegiate level?
Well, man, God opened up an incredible door when He opened up the campus of UT Tyler. The very first, when I first started with FCA, the golf coach who was there had been a member of the church where I served. And he said, man, I know you're with FCA now. He said, I would like to ask you to come and join just a coach's Bible study at UT Tyler. I don't want you to lead it. I want you to come sit at the table and just meet the other coaches. And I've never had a chance to ask King why he did it that way, but he could not have done it any other better, because instead of coming in as kind of that guy leading a Bible study, I just got to know the head coaches around the table. And the very first coach who stepped up and said, hey, I want you to work with my team. I don't know fully what that means, but I want you to work with my team, was Stephanie Webb, who is still the women's soccer coach. And from beginning to work with her and the women's soccer team, that led to men's soccer, which led to men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, track, and cross country. I've had opportunity, probably, Scott, to serve about 8 or 9 teams on that campus in a role that's called the character coach. And if you talk to any head coach on a collegiate level, they want athletes, obviously, who have the talent to play at the level that they're at. For UT Tyler, D2 level. But they also want athletes who have character and can develop leadership skills. But with everything they've got on their plate as a coach, sometimes that's the piece that gets neglected the most. And so for me, I get an opportunity as an FCA staffer to simply come along that head coach and say, fine, let me do that for you. You tell me what you want that to look like, and then let me step into that role and serve that as an extension of your staff. And so the character and the leadership piece, those kind of make sense. It's just that, man, what are the core values of the program that I'm serving at the time? And so how can I help them embrace that as a player on that team? Obviously, man, as a college athlete, you possess some leadership skills that maybe just the average student on a campus doesn't mean they can't develop that. But if you've been active in sports since you've been, 4 or 5 years old, that's something that a business is going to look for as you get ready to graduate. And so work on those 2 key pieces with them. And then, man, the spiritual piece, that's the icing on the cake, because being a state university, we do operate that everything that is done spiritually through the athletic department is done voluntarily. So it's not forced on any athlete on any team whatsoever. And kind of how that looks like on the college campus, on Monday night, we have Tyler Collegiate FCA, which is a huddle made up of all of the athletes from TJC, open to Texas College, and UT Tyler. We meet at APEC. Our students drive that, and they take the lead on teaching that on Monday nights. And then individually, man, it depends on what sport you're talking about. So we're getting ready for baseball and softball season, so let me use the baseball team as an example. This will be my 8th year to serve with Brent Porsche and the UT Tyler baseball team. And in those 8 years, part of why he brought me in the spring, those guys don't have an opportunity to get to church because we play every weekend. We're either on the road or we're here. We play on Sundays, and so every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there is a game day devotion that takes place. For the first 4 years of those, Scott, I did every single one of those, man. So you're talking 60 game day devotions throughout a baseball season. But the drive of FCA now is, man, we want to be a ministry that not only, yes, presents the gospel of Jesus Christ, but we want to be disciples who make disciples who make disciples. Good. So my role has actually shifted to, and I love this because this is right in my wheelhouse, man, I'm a disciple maker. And so I ask God for 3 or 4 or 5 guys who want to grow to know, what does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? How do I take, like you say, a kid maybe who grew up going to church, family going to church, but now you're on your own. And that's my favorite conversation, to sit there and say, man, tell me about your spiritual background. And when they do, to look at them and say, great, what does that mean to you now? Because mom and dad aren't here. They're not going to see if you're going to go to church. They may ask you, but it's an easy out to say, well, we're either traveling or we're playing. And so, man, to come alongside guys who sit there and say, Rob, I simply want to know what that's going to look like, because here's the one thing that I can look at every athlete, every team, Scott, and tell them I have one absolute guarantee I can give you. And it doesn't matter if you're a volleyball player, if you're with cheer and dance, if you're a baseball player, here's the guarantee. At some point, you will take that jersey off for the last time. And because sports is such a huge part of our society and a huge part of these athletes' lives, the big battle that we see is, man, what's your identity? Who are you? And now the church answer, we know the church answer.
Right.
Well, yes, if I know Jesus Christ, then he is my identity. But that's not easy to live out. Man, when you've been playing baseball since you were 4 years old, and now you're playing at a collegiate level, and UT Tyler baseball, they just made it to the World Series this last year for the very first time. Man, it is so easy for your identity to become wrapped up in, man, I'm a baseball player. No, you're not. That's what you do. God gave you that gift. Man, he set you in a track that you now are in a university who can develop that skill, but that's not who you are. And if that's all that you place your worth and your value on, then, man, all it takes is one injury, one coach change, one, man, new player that comes in who takes your position, and you are left with the battle of, who am I now? And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with guys who know that's not true, but it is still a battle to say, man, I need Jesus to be the center of my life so that when the injury comes, I'm not totally devastated. I'm down, but I am not devastated because he's still got a purpose in this. And man, the beautiful thing that we see in D2 athletics at UT Tyler right now, we get students from around the world. And so no longer do we have to sit there and say, well, man, how are we going to get the message of Jesus around the world?
The world's come to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is amazing. Scott and I have had conversations with some of our basketball players from Eastern Europe who are intrigued with the Christian faith and yet have absolutely no background in it whatsoever. With two of those guys, as they have finished up their career and getting ready to go back to Europe, have had the opportunity. You ever tried to sit down and in an hour teach somebody how to use a Bible who's never opened a Bible? Same thing. It can be overwhelming as the staffer. And what I have to remember is, man, that's the work of the Spirit. That all I can do is the best I can do. Share with them what the message is of this book, and then trust that God's going to be with them as they go forward. Man, I've got guys on the baseball team now. I was telling you that 4 or 5 years, I did all the devos. Last year, out of 60-plus devotions, I think I did 8. Good. Because we've got our athletes now stepping into the leadership role and assuming the spiritual leadership on that team. Those guys are doing their own Bible studies within their team. They're having guys over at their house to just have meals and talk about life and how does Jesus fit into that without being forced or anything like that. It's just they have a love for their teammates. We've got some of those guys who are taking what I've been doing with them and are now doing that with 1 or 2 teammates themselves. And so, man, when you sit there and you say, what does the spiritual temperature of UT Tyler look like? Man, I can guarantee you God is on the move. This last fall, we saw 2 basketball players come to know Christ through the Monday night huddle. And, man, I could go on. We honestly don't have time for for all the stories and everything.
You said earlier, and I appreciate the fact, this is pure volunteer. Nothing's
Absolutely.
forced, of course. And so at the request of coaches, I want to ask you a twofold question. First of all, You talked a lot about your involvement with student athletes, young men, but you're also working with men and women who are older, who are coaches. How do they see for their program, because you're helping their program, how do they see the benefit of FCA in what you do as a character coach, FCA representative, whatever title we want to give you? Because I want to ask you, too, you travel with the baseball team. So you're with those guys every weekend. You'll travel with basketball. Let's go back to the coach's standpoint. What value have they seen? If we were to bring some of those coaches in here today, could they say, hey, here's how Rob or FCA has helped our team, not just with spiritual things, but with, as you said, character? Because as a former, way back in the day, college athlete, we had some knuckleheads on our team, and that brought more stress. It outweighed the performance part, and it was just difficult for the coach to handle. So how have you helped, or in your opinion, what have been some of the testimonials from some of those coaches that said, hey, FCA's role has helped not only my student athletes, my players, but how has it helped maybe some of them and their families in your experience through the years?
Man, you asked really good
Without
questions.
sharing
There-
names,
There's,
yeah.
there's a lot in there and everything.
Yeah.
No, I think one of the things that the coaches would say, because I travel with the volleyball team as well as the baseball team, opportunity with softball every once in a while. And when we're on the road, obviously one of the things that we're going to do, and we do it when we're at home as well, is we will have a character session.
Okay.
And those become the building blocks to what a coach sees as foundational to who they are as a program. And so, like with volleyball, man, some of the core values that they have are compassion, are commitment, passion, swag. And so to sit there and say, okay, how do you develop that? How do you help a young lady come along and be passionate, not only about volleyball, but about life and about everything? So when they step into a job as they graduate, how can they take that same kind of drive and passion and apply it now to where they are, not just as a volleyball player? And so I think they would say that's the first and foremost thing to it, above the spiritual piece, is just helping athletes come in. Because, man, I tell you what, Scott, we don't deal necessarily with NIL on the D2 level,
Okay.
but we do deal with this little thing called the transfer portal.
Yes. Yeah.
And when that happens, there is turnover year after year. Basketball team this year, men's basketball, out of 16 players, 11 are new. And so you've got 11 guys who are now coming in. Do they have the talent? Absolutely. If they didn't have talent, they wouldn't be playing in the first place. But how do you get them all on the same page? How do you get them, the way I couch it is, how do we get them to be one heart, one mind, one focus?
Good.
And so I think that would be one of the things that the coaches stress, that the help of a character coach does. And then, man, to be available.
Yeah, because I know you've told me in the past you've done some weddings for
Oh,
players. You've been to some
yeah.
funerals representing the
Oh,
university for families. So
yeah.
that connection, and with time, you build that character and that relationship. And I think that's an incredible testimony.
I'm closing in on doing 25 weddings now.
Wow.
For some of our athletes and
Good.
some of our coaches. Man, I've been at the hospital when we've had athletes who are having surgery. And so to not only get to minister to the athlete themselves, but to get to meet the parents and to walk beside the family, because some of those injuries have ended careers. Yeah. And with all of them, it's just something that they're facing in life in that moment. Well, yes, all of our coaches would love to be there and be able to be at the hospital, but sometimes they're not able to.
Yeah.
And so there again, to be able to be an extension of that coaching staff and say, hey, Coach so-and-so is represented here today because, man, I get to be that piece and help them out with that. And then mental aspect of a baseball player, softball player, any athlete, the mental challenge that they face today, because we expect them to be excelling not only on the field or the court, but in the classroom.
Yeah.
UT Tyler, they place a high priority on grades. And so here our athletes are striving to be nationally competitive in the sport that they're in the classroom excelling. Meanwhile, looking at what kind of internship do they need to do for the degree program that they have, juggle whatever kind of social life they may or may not have. And so there are times that I get a call either from the coaching staff or from the athlete themselves who just say, "Hey, Rob, can we go grab coffee? I just need to visit. I need to clear my mind. I need to find some ways to refocus and just realize what is important and what's my next step there." And so that's a piece of it as well, Scott.
Rob, we have a couple of minutes left here, but I want to ask you, you talked about the world's come to UT Tyler with all the different national. Just real quick, on a lighter note, funny stories as you've assembled teams together. You don't assemble them, the coaches do, but have you had any funny cultural, I mean, they're coming to deep East Texas, let's just be honest. So what are, just off the top of your head, if you can think of one in the last minute or so that we have, something funny that in your involvement with that team, on a trip or at home, what's been something that's really just stuck with you?
I don't know if it's funny or not, but man, just realizing what you take for granted that you mean doesn't necessarily translate. I mean,
Right.
when you've got all kids from Texas and you start a character session, they know that. Sometimes
When you're
our
fixing to do something, they
our
all get it.
international athletes will raise their hand and like, "Rob, I have no idea what you're talking about." It's like, okay, but I love that because it challenges me to make it as simple as can be.
Good.
How do we take that? And isn't that the beauty of the gospel? How do we take it and make a message that can be unknown as simple as can be?
Yeah.
Last thing, Scott, we had one of our baseball players. He said that when he got here, he was from Canada, said when he got here, the first time that the team circled up to do a prayer, he had no idea what they were doing.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, Jeff, I think I know what you mean, but I said, really, tell me honest, what do you mean by that? He said, I didn't know what they were doing. He said, I had never prayed. I'd never been around prayer or anything like that. That was in August. And by that December, that dude had given his life to Jesus.
That's great. That's
And
great.
so, man, we're blessed,
Good.
not only with the coaches, middle school, high school, and college that we have, but just the fact that through this incredible platform of sport, God is doing amazing work in East Texas.
Good. Well, I know Robert well enough in his work. He could always use quality people that want to plug in some form or fashion. And so we appreciate that. We just appreciate you folks being with us today here on East Texas Sunday Sermon. Robert, I appreciate you so much. Praying for you as you move forward, both at the middle school, high school, and collegiate level. And once again, thanks for being with us. Scott Brown, we look forward to seeing you again next time.